I don't ever expect him to do the dishes because he's working and I'm doing that stuff.
Yeah.
So
I think it's
So
also important.
uncommon.
Yeah, it's also important to know that even though we have these expectations, if there's a time where I know I can take some weight off her plate,
Yeah.
even though it maybe puts a little bit
Still
more on
willing to
mine,
do everything, every single one of those things.
every one of them. Yep.
Welcome back to another episode of Just Real Quick. Thank you for tuning in. Today we got some special guests in the studio with us, our beautiful wives. You guys are used to seeing me and Jeff here in the studio, but we thought, how cool would it be to bring the ladies in once again and start to share some of the background and some of the stories, some of the stuff that happens behind the scenes that makes it possible for us to show up and do the things that we do on a daily basis. So welcome to the studio, ladies. Excited to hear from you.
Thanks for having us.
So I think that the idea really was, we got a summit coming up for JKR Windows. And one of the things that we wanted to do is really spend some time getting the spouses more involved, whether it's spouses or girlfriends. And a great way to warm up and get prepared for that workshop is to bring two of the top partners in the company to share some insights and a little bit of experiences over the years of what it's taken to support, what would you say, the Coach Burt says,
Monster.
the monster.
Support the monster.
No, they're the monsters.
for sure,
Am I-
they're the monsters. For
Not a
sure.
monster?
100%.
Like a producing monster.
Monster,
Yeah.
yeah.
A
Yeah,
monster
he calls it
produced.
monster producer.
Yeah.
So it's just his terminology, but it's
Yeah. Like Tim Grover's the cleaner
cleaner. Yeah, when I first
Cleaner.
heard that, I was like, cleaner. Okay, Tim.
coming in to clean up.
Everybody's got their own version of it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but there is there's a special dynamic that I know that me and Chandel have that it's made JKR Windows possible.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's provided the support and the encouragement and everything that I needed because of my love languages and my personality to be able to thrive and to continue to just give everything that I have, because I know that I've also experienced the other side of it
Yeah.
when things weren't so good at home, mostly caused by me.
Yeah.
But the energy difference in the amount of productivity and focus that I can have when things are dialed versus the other end of the spectrum, it's
Yeah.
like night and day difference.
Yeah.
I know you guys have gotten to experience a little bit of that too.
Yeah, for sure.
It's been perfect the whole time.
Yep.
Rainbows and butterflies.
Sailing.
No, I think it's important for people to know that in your journey to success, the most important decision you're going to make is who you choose to go on that journey with, and then their support in the process. And a lot of times, that, especially men, I think most men just assume that, like, oh, she should just support me because she's married to me. Well, that's not always the case, because a lot of times most men say they're going to do something and then don't deliver. And then, so I think it's important for people when you have a spouse, or whether it's a girlfriend or a wife or a husband, whoever your spouse is, or the partner on your journey that you're going to go on this journey with, you need to fulfill the promises that you've said that you were going to fulfill.
Yeah.
And to everybody around you, by the way. It's like one of the things I've always said is when my wife hears me make a commitment to somebody else, I want to deliver on that commitment that I committed to someone else, so that my wife also knows, oh, he delivers on his word. It's not just to me, but it's to everybody else as well, right?
And it puts that trust within the relationship too, so that there is that support, I feel like.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How was that? How do you feel like that's played a role in our relationship over the years, as you've seen both ends of the spectrum for me, talking a big game and not really acting on it, and then how it's flipped? What is your perspective on that? You remember that night that I broke down and I told you that I wanted to start reading, I wanted to start doing sales training, and it was in front of you and my mom, and I started bawling like a baby. And there was all these promises that I was making, but I wasn't keeping, and it all kind of caught up to me in that moment when I was a little drunk, and I got emotional about it.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Vaguely.
But I know for me, it hangs over my head. When I make a promise, when I make a commitment, and I don't keep it, whether it was to myself or to anybody else.
Yeah. That's one thing you're always like, you have a conscience, and like when you say you're going to do something, you usually do it.
So let me ask you a question. So anybody that's read his book knows that, which if you haven't read it, you should, but knows that that wasn't always the case,
Yeah.
right? Where there was this pattern of you making commitments and then not delivering, and you wanted to, you had the desire, right? Which is the one thing I've always said, you can't teach desire, right? So you had the desire always, but you were in the cycle of what I think is drowning out that desire with alcohol and,
Yeah.
you know, doing stupid shit. But at some point you made that change. So Chandel, what did you notice at some point? Did you notice it at some point that all of a sudden, oh, he's actually delivering on the things that he said, or was it just like this slow
It
thing?
was when he stopped drinking that he actually delivered on what he said.
And so right away, did you trust him before that? Were you trusting him, or were you just like, oh yeah, whatever?
I did. But I think I just like let things like slide a lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so then once he stopped drinking, then so you like actively noticed like, oh, he actually did what he said he's going to do.
Like I knew he was serious.
Yeah.
And then it was like a switch. It was pretty instant, I feel like.
It's interesting because yesterday I told somebody, they were telling me, oh, it takes 21 days to create a habit. And I go, that's bullshit. It takes 1 second.
Yeah.
It just takes
To make a
time
decision.
it just takes time to prove that you were
Yeah.
actually serious about doing this thing.
Yeah, that's
Right.
true.
So I think it's important. Have you ever noticed in me in the past where I didn't do what I said I was going to do and then all of a sudden it changed?
No. I was like, I mean, you've always been that person that every time you tell me, that's what's scary, is that every time you tell me you're going to do something, you
You're
do
like,
it.
You're like, oh, here we go.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you've been,
That's opposite.
yeah, exactly. You've always just followed through with
Yeah.
what you say you're going to do, which is, I mean, one reason why I fell in love with you, I feel like, because you say you're going to do something and you go full force and do it.
Yeah.
So,
So if it's something you don't like, then you're like, shit, I better get on board or
well, exactly.
Change
And that
his
was,
mind.
Yeah.
that was early on in business. I wasn't on board because I didn't understand, and we're talking about partnership, right? And why it's important for partners to show up. And in corporate world, that's not how it goes. It's, you go your separate ways, you go to your job, he goes to his job, and then you come home at night and talk about what you did at your job. So I didn't understand when he was starting a business that I needed to be on board. And so that caused a lot of friction. And we fought a lot in the beginning because I just didn't understand. And then once he asked me to get on board and he's like, hey, I need your support. I need you to show up. I need you to come to all the meetings, get on all the calls. Then that's when I feel like everything changed.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Because-
that makes me think. We've seen so many examples in J. Carroll windows of people that have talent coming out of their freaking ears, but they've got a spouse or they've got a girlfriend
Yeah.
that's never been around this type of environment or this
Right.
opportunity,
Yeah.
and we haven't gotten them engaged. So it's partially our responsibility to bring them in. That's why we're doing these partnership workouts. We want to expose people to the opportunity, the environment, the people. This is real.
Yeah.
And if the spouses can see it, if they're in the right frame of mind, they're like, what are you doing? Why are you wasting your time? Like, let's get this going and light a fire.
Yes.
yeah.
But then I've also seen people that it's threatening. They've seen it. We've exposed them to it very intentionally, trying to get this guy that has so much talent to get his fire lit.
Yeah.
But then the opposite happens. And if there is not support and there's not a complete buy-in,
Yep.
it's partially, so one of the things I think you were really good at, because there was tension there early, there was tension there for me and Chandel early, but I had to sell her the vision.
Yeah.
And I had to convince her that this was going to be worth our attention and our energy to go through it together.
Yeah.
And I think that's one area that despite somebody having early impressions about a company or about what they're doing or why they're doing it, it's your responsibility to go back and negotiate and to cast a vision and to paint a picture and to make it work.
Yeah, you've got to,
It's not going to just fix itself.
Right.
yeah, if you want to live the dream, you got to constantly be selling it.
Yeah.
Not only to yourself, but other people around you. You have to be that lighthouse, that beacon of light. And I've always said it's not what you're doing, it's the reward that you're going to get from what you're doing, right? And that's really what people want, is they want the reward. Nobody wants to go do squats. People say they love leg day all day, but it hurts, it's uncomfortable, it sucks. You don't love doing legs, you love the result. You love how you feel afterwards. The same thing with a cold plunge. You don't love getting in the cold water. You don't crave the cold, you crave the feeling after you get out. Same thing with success, right? And so you've got to constantly be selling the result from this, which is, what I've always tried to do. It's like, I still do it to this day. Like, hey, here's where we're going to be. Here's why we're going to do it. Here's what it's going to look like in 5 years or 10 years or 20 years. I do it to my wife, my kids, people around me. And it's also, I'm programming my own mind to remind myself. And I think so often people think that it's bragging, or that you shouldn't be saying like, oh, I'm going to do this. And they always say, oh yeah, I'm just the kind of person that takes action. I don't want to do a lot of talking. Well, yeah, you need to take a lot of action, right? Because that's what gives you credibility.
You got to have a combination of the two.
Yes, but you also have to communicate in order to get a group of people to move and become a leader. Otherwise, you're never going to build anything great.
Yeah.
You're just probably, if you're in sales, it's just going to be you forever.
And I think that is the difference between a high performer and a leader and just an operator.
Yeah.
Because I've been on both sides of it now. And when I was building houses, I was one of the best out there.
Yeah.
I could run that nail gun and that saw, and I could walk on 2x4 walls, and I could do all this crazy shit as a carpenter. But I smoked weed every day, and I didn't have to talk to one single person all day long. And I loved that.
Yeah.
At that point in my life, I didn't have anybody to answer to.
Yeah.
I didn't have to talk to anybody.
But you know what I would argue to say? You're saying you loved it, but I don't think you did. Otherwise, you wouldn't need to smoke weed every day.
Yeah.
The reason you were smoking weed is because you knew that you should have been doing more.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it obviously wasn't leading me down a path that was going to get me anywhere
Well, I
in
think
life.
it's an important thing, because in the world today where it's being legalized and a lot of people are thinking, well, if you're in a situation where you feel like, oh, you need to have a drink every day or smoke weed or whatever it is, or a doctor tells you got ADHD or all this other BS, really, isn't it? You're trying to suppress something that you're...
Oh, I
Your
absolutely
potential.
was.
I think you were
absolutely
scared
was.
of your potential is what it was. And so you were like suppressing
And there I was.
it.
I was the best at that.
Yeah.
All that potential, all that talent was focused on, just something that I got some fulfillment out of it. I've even just working with my dad the last couple of days. I love doing that stuff.
Yeah.
And the fulfillment that you get, the accomplishment, being able to look back at something you just did, like, I did that. That's pretty freaking awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it wasn't going to lead me anywhere.
Yeah.
And the weed obviously wasn't going to lead me anywhere. I think the point that I was making is that when you're in a relationship and you just put your head down and go do it despite what anybody else thinks,
Yeah.
you're not getting anywhere. You're not making any progress. And the other person is wondering how they fit into this scenario.
Right.
So early on, I got good.
At casting the vision.
I had to talk about it often. And I would say things, maybe that weren't all that tactful, like, you're not going to fucking see me for the next 18 months. Like, you better get used to it.
I think we've all said that, huh? Yeah.
And it wasn't the best way to do it, but then I'd come back later after reflecting on that and the way that she responded, and I'd be like, man, there's probably a better way to do that.
Yeah.
And get more buy-in.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think when we're communicating properly, the support is there. And you can work harder as well when things are meshing at home.
Well, it's an important thing, I think, with the words that people say. You got to remember, like I've always said, wars were started and fought because of words that people say. Our country was founded because of words that a group of men got together and wrote on a document. And think about how many lives have been changed because men decided to say, write down a vision and then cast that vision. Think about these speeches like Martin Luther King's I Had a Dream, or Abraham Lincoln 70 years ago, all these things, or like Don King, The Rumble in the Jungle. All of these times that men had a vision in their minds, but then did a great job of using the words to clarify those, have changed the world. And so often people, they kind of get reserved, and I think for a couple of reasons. Maybe they get nervous. They actually have to fulfill these commitments, but I think it's important to understand that as we have a spouse, we need to be willing to sell that vision to our spouses. Right?
Yeah, not only willing, but you got to get damn good at it.
Yes.
If you want to do anything special, especially in sales and in door-to-door sales like we do at J. Carroll Windows, these guys are You know, right now they're in Reno, and they're there for a week,
Yep.
Yeah.
and they got to put their head down, and they've got expectations, and they're expected to go out there and deliver and put in a certain amount of activity every day. And there's points in my career when things weren't good at home, and despite being there away from all the distractions, I wouldn't have been able to perform the way I was expected to perform
Right.
if I didn't have stuff put together at home and talked through it and had the support and had the backing and making the phone calls at night, you know, talking about family stuff and getting rid of all the.
There's
Well,
even been
just,
times where you like left the house in an argument to go to work. And then like an hour later he's coming home because he's like, I can't fucking perform with this on my mind right
thinking
now. So
about
he
it.
comes
Let's
home.
work it out.
He comes home to fix it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
What do you think,
communication.
babe? Where's been times like as this has happened in our career where, you know, I feel like we've done a good job at working together and finding where in our vision what we're trying to build, communicating that. I do feel like that's one of our strengths.
Yeah.
Maybe mine not so tactfully, as Jefferson would put it, but.
Yeah.
Hey, I know I'm going to do this and nothing's going to get in my way.
Right.
And I've always said I'm more like the Tasmanian devil. I come in and I just churn shit up, and then you come behind me and like, oh, he didn't mean that. Oh, he didn't like this is what he really meant. This is
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that, because I think it's important that, one, we were on the same page,
Yeah.
but two, is you understood the vision. And then we did a good job of executing together, because there were times where I wasn't up. And there were times where I was down and you were the one that was up, and then vice versa.
Yeah. I mean, I think, first of all, you have to get your spouse on board. And you sold me that vision. And you always made me feel like, at first we were just dating. So when he started, it's his thing. Like, who knows if we're even going to end up staying together? Like, that was my mindset. Like, it's his thing, it's his thing. But he did such a great job at, no, it's our thing, it's our thing. And then we wrote down our goals of what we wanted and selling me the vision of how much money we could make and bringing me around and keeping me engaged. I think that was the biggest thing. So it started there, and that's how you start getting the support. And then obviously following through on your word of what you're going to do. So we would set goals, and he would tell me, hey, babe, we're going to do this. We're going to do this month, like this amount of production. And then you're not going to see me. I'm going to be grinding. I'm going to be working late nights, early mornings. But I understood that, and I wanted to be a part of that. And so because of that, I was okay with all the long hours. And then we didn't have kids at that time, so I was wanting to help in any way that I could, because he sold me the vision constantly of where we were going. And it was fun. It was so much fun. But at first, I didn't get it, you know? And so I think that if you can get your spouse involved in some way and feel like it's theirs as well, and not just, because, you know, in the corporate world, it's their thing. And so here it can be our thing. And it is, especially if you're out working late nights and you're making money, and it's eventually going to build something for your family.
Dream life.
A
Yeah,
dream
one of the
life.
things I've constantly heard you say is you wanted to be the reason we did succeed, not the reason we didn't.
Right. And yeah, it would never sit well with me knowing that we were the reason why we didn't succeed, because I held him back, or I was negative. And you see that a lot, and it's so sad. Like you said, there's guys that come into this business and they are just champions, they're leaders, they're hard workers, but at home, the spouse is not on board, they're not okay with what's going on, and they're the reason why they don't succeed. And, you know, obviously it probably goes both ways, but the person working is not selling their spouse on the vision of what's
Yeah.
really going to happen.
It does. So yeah, it does go both ways.
Yeah.
You both got to be. You have to go home and sell the dream. That person has to be open and growth minded.
Yep.
And you've got to bring them along, because I very easily, with all of the conferences and the workshops and the boot camps and the coaching and the consulting, I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on that shit.
Yeah.
And I could have very easily just left Chandel in the dust
Yep.
and said, you just stay home and do your thing. I'm going to go conquer the world. And very early on, I got some advice, and I think I'd even heard it multiple times from Jeff because of your guys' relationship,
Yeah.
that you guys got to do it together. You've
Yep.
got to bring her with you. And how many examples have you guys seen of people go do it the other way
Yeah.
and leave somebody in the dust, and they outgrow each other,
Yep.
and it
Yeah.
never turns out pretty.
Yeah, no, it's going to grow apart. And I think that's an important thing for leaders, is to understand that if one of them isn't on board, even if they're a top performer, it's just a matter of time before their personal life blows up and their performance blows up as well. And so as a leader, we've got to do a good job of making sure that a top performer is also bringing their spouse with them and helping them grow together so that they can become stronger. Because the reality is it takes a team to build something great.
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of times we just assume that, oh, they're a top performer because of just them, and it's not. It takes a team of people around them, and it doesn't matter what sport it is. Even if you go to like an individual sport and you say like boxing, for example, it still takes a great team of people around them. Yeah, they've got to go in there and perform, but without the team around them, they can't perform at their best.
Yeah, any great boxer they don't ever claim all the credit. They're always talking about their team and their coach and their mentors and the people that inspired them.
Yeah.
And any person that's ever accomplished anything great, whether it was in business or sports or in family, they all had these influences in their life that helped them accomplish those things.
Yep. And the influences will never be there if you're not clear on the vision of where you need support.
Yeah.
You know. And I wrote down here, not just support, but involved. Like you need people in your life that are involved. And I think Kelsey too, and I know Chandel, but she's always been very involved. Not just supportive, like, hey, go crush it, you're awesome, you can do this, I believe in you, you're amazing, which she did that. But it was always like, hey, what can I do? Like, I don't care if I need to mow the lawn. I don't care if I need to go take the car to get an oil change so that you can continue putting, 5,000 miles a month on the vehicle or whatever it was at that time. But whatever, like we did a good job. One of the things, and Kelsey maybe could talk about this, is we wrote down the list of all the things that needed to get
I was
done in
gonna
our
say,
lives.
and then set like roles, like
Yes.
who's
Yeah.
doing what.
And what we
Yeah.
did is we write it down, and then we would just she would take a pink highlighter, and I would get a blue highlighter, and we would just go through that list and highlight the roles that we were going to fill.
I love that.
And then so she would take the pink list, and I would take the blue list, and then over time those would change. So we'd have to constantly get back together and go over those roles again, right?
Yeah, one thing I was going to say is that your roles can change.
Yes.
And that's why it's important. So to go over it again, because some stuff and another good thing about doing that is, what was I going to say? Is that then I don't expect you to do something that, like,
Isn't
why aren't you
role.
taking out the trash ever? Why aren't you mowing the lawn? Like, we used to bicker in the beginning about stuff like that.
Because of unmet expectations.
Yeah, like I would think he was responsible for doing certain things.
or
Uncommunicated expectations.
unsaid expectations.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so everything
Assumptions.
in life that needs to happen, from home life to business, you write from kids, write everything down, and then I don't expect him to take the kids to sports. I don't ever expect him to do the dishes because he's working and I'm doing that stuff.
Yeah.
So
I think it's
So
also important.
uncommon.
Yeah, it's also important to know that even though we have these expectations, if there's a time where I know I can take some weight off her plate,
Yeah.
even though it maybe puts a little bit
Still
more on
willing to
mine,
do every single one of those things.
every one of them. Yep.
a leader once said, you need to be doing or be willing to do all you can do until you can't do anymore. And so that just means like, I'm going to do everything I'm supposed to do and a little bit more until I just can't do anything anymore. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because then eventually what happens is you move forward. So like in our lives, do everything you can until you can't do any more for everybody and everything, because then eventually you start making enough money, you can hire someone to do that.
Yeah.
Like there was a time where at the beginning, Kelsey would be doing the dishes, the laundry, literally mowing the lawn, doing all that. But then eventually it was like, oh, we're making more money. So let's hire someone to do landscaping, hire someone to take care of the house, hire someone to do the laundry. And then eventually it was like, all right, you can do anything you want to do.
So now I don't know what you do.
Yeah, I would joke around and say, I can tell you what she doesn't do. I don't know what she does, but I guarantee you, I can tell you what she doesn't do, right? But that
All
was
the
the
things you pay
price.
for.
Take
Yeah,
all
that
the
was
jobs
the
away
price.
from us.
Exactly. And isn't that awesome?
It is.
Right? I mean,
is.
that's what we're working
That's
for.
why we do this.
Yes.
Yeah, we're
We don't do
very
it so we can
privileged.
continue to work our faces off.
Yeah.
That was those times when we didn't have much, and when I was coming to you and saying, like, you're not going to see me for the next 18 months, and I need your support because I need to go do this. For us to change, for anything to change in our lives, this financial situation, for us to accomplish any of these big ass goals that we've written down,
Yeah.
I'm going to have to go put my head down and work. And those those uncommunicated expectations are just little distractions. The little bickering, the little arguments are going to keep you from reaching your goals and being able to operate at a high level.
Yeah.
And the more that you can communicate that and put your plan together, your lifestyle design that we've talked about, you get all the distractions out of the way.
Yeah.
And then you guys are both on the same page. You can be in full stride all the time. And I feel like for the first couple of years, we were up and down with that
Yeah.
because of the expectations and the assumptions and the lack of communication. But over the past couple of years,
We've really nailed it down a lot.
we've got it dialed. We're on the same page. We've gone through those expectations so many different times. You know what your role is. I know what mine is. And we can just freaking fly.
Yeah.
Now, how about this? In today's day and age, relationships, period, are just different than they ever have been. And the example that we are, the four of us, is a pretty powerful thing.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you guys hear it often because I know we do, about how we show up in a room and our dynamic and our energy with each other and the way that we treat each other.
Yeah.
People want that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just so uncommon. And today, with dating sites and shit, that was around long before I met Chandel, or
Yeah.
long
Yeah.
after I
Right.
met Chandel.
Thank
Yeah.
goodness.
So now it's just so different, like the way that people meet each other and the way that they interact and the way that they establish a relationship.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that for a minute. Like just the example that you are in a relationship. And how do you, in today's day and age, with everything digital and you're watching everybody's lives happen on social media, how do you have a strong relationship?
I could tell you this. I'll start it off because I just had a conversation with a guy that I love that called me the other day, and he's having actually some challenges with his spouse, and he's made some dumb decisions on social media, and it's created some jealousy and some trust issues, and he didn't actually do anything wrong necessarily, but his intentions weren't pure, right? And so that creates some issues. And I just told him, I said, listen, I'm probably the least jealous guy in the world. I'm not jealous. But I also, I was telling him the other day, I go, but I'm a badass, dude. I really am. My wife has reasons to trust me. I've performed at a high level, made a lot of money. I treat my kids good. I treat my wife. These aren't things I say. These are things I do. And I told him, I've worked my face off trying to become this incredible human, not just a great husband or a great father or a great friend.
Or a person that looks good on social media.
Exactly. Yeah, I could care what anybody else thinks. I'm not trying to put on this persona. I genuinely want to be I want to be a man that my wife is proud to be married to. I want to be a friend I challenge my friends to get better. I want to be a father that my kids are proud of, that I'm their dad. And because as they get older, they start comparing. Your kids just do, right? My dad's tougher than your dad. And then they get older and they go, oh, my dad's got a beer belly. And maybe my dad isn't as tough as I thought he was, I don't want those things to happen. And so I think that one of the things I've tried to do and I've worked really hard at is become the person that I know that I'm supposed to be. That I know my wife can trust, that I know I can trust, that I actually am who I say I am. Right? And so, and I know Kelsey, you do the same thing. I know both of you guys do too. Yeah. And so I think that's as we talk about relationships are different. And I think there's these fundamental values that are eroding in our country today that people just are trying to negotiate their character and their values. And that's where the erosion of relationships happen.
It's just it is so simple when you think about it. I was talking to this guy over the last couple of days, and he's had a bunch of trauma in his life, and he's got health problems, and he's, a lot of the stuff that comes out of his mouth is manifesting in his life in so many ways, and his distrust for women, and his health, and then I watch the way that he eats. I'm like, well, you're not doing anything about any of these things.
Yeah.
So how simple really is it when you write some things down? You want a great relationship?
You have
Be
to
a great person.
prioritize it too.
You want to attract a great person into your life, you have to be a great person that's in
Yeah.
shape, that does what they say they're going to do, that earns money. There's just these very simple principles you apply to your life. When you think about it, it's not that. And when you say that there's all these compromises because of social media and nobody's watching, so who's gonna know? There's a lot of that stuff going on.
Yeah.
And you want to have a great relationship, be a great person.
Yeah.
How about just as simple as that?
Exactly. Yeah, you're not going to be a 6 and attract a 10. It's just not how it works.
Unless you got a lot of money.
I say, yeah. Well, even then, because then you had to pay a price.
Yeah.
And so that's attractive, right? And that was actually one of the things I said to this guy the other day is we were talking about that because he is very physically fit, but he's not performing in other areas of his life. And it's like, look, dude, if women want security, right? Women thrive from security. And so sometimes in the world today, they'll say, oh, yeah, she's a gold digger. No, maybe she just wants security to know that you can actually provide.
Yeah.
Like, be a provider. Like, what's wrong with that? There's nothing wrong with a woman saying, hey, if I'm going to raise children and do all this stuff at the home front, that I just want to make sure you're actually going to deliver enough money that I have the resources to do a great job with my kids, to raise them in a great neighborhood, to expect them to be winners as they grow up, to put them in great sports and to do all these things. It takes resources. And for men, we've got to be, we got to go out and provide. And there's nothing wrong. And it's not like Kelsey's not willing to go do whatever it takes to make money, because she is. But we also want to have these dynamics in our life where, we have, she can be a great mom and she can play any role she desires to actually play, but it takes the resources to do that. And that goes back to the beginning of all of this, which is like, you got to have a partner who's involved, so you have goals, and then you can go accomplish, so you can get the resources, so you can create the dream life that you want, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think you got to prioritize your relationship too, though.
Yeah, no,
Like-
that was good.
Like
I was gonna say
schedule the date nights and no exceptions on that.
In the beginning, we didn't do date nights.
No, we didn't.
That was, but I had seen, and I'm kind of this type of person that I say something and then I watch how it made you feel.
Yeah.
And I care about how I make people feel.
Yeah.
So all those interactions that we had, I'd come back home after I made you feel like shit and be like, God, I just can't do it. This day's going to be wasted if I don't get this fixed. Or if I didn't present an idea the right way, I'm trying to come back and make sure that it gets fixed.
Yeah.
But the priority that your relationship has to take over time, if you don't prioritize it,
Yeah.
our relationship had started to deteriorate and very noticeably deteriorate because I was gone and I'm working. I'm gone before you wake up and I'm home when you're going to bed, and same with the kids. And I'm noticing that my relationship and my communication and my connection
Yeah.
is dwindling, and it's a terrible feeling. And some people just don't give a shit. And you witness this stuff firsthand with people, and they don't give a shit, and they're just like written it off, their relationship with their wife and their kids. It's like, what? Dude, this is like a huge priority for me. I don't know about you, but I'm going to mix stuff up and make sure that I go back to the drawing board and make time for all the important stuff to drive the business. But then the date nights and going on, I just put something on my calendar last week. I want to start going on walks with my little girls. And we already do our daddy-daughter dates once a month, and we do our date night every week. But there's these things that over time I've watched and I've observed and very intentionally had to adjust things in my life to make sure that all the other important things stay intact while I'm doing all this other shit.
Yeah, I've always said you can have it all. And if you can't have it all, you should have it all.
Yeah.
Right? You should.
Exactly.
You can.
Exactly.
And that means you should. And another
That's
thing
that
is like,
concept of balance.
yeah, it's not. I think balance is a myth. There's no such thing as freaking balance, but you can have it all.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean it's going to be balanced.
Yeah.
Right? It's like,
It's not going to be equal.
yeah, balance to me is like mediocrity. It's like average. Like, hey, let's just figure out a way to make, what are you going to do? Spend a third of your life sleeping, a third of your life working, and a third of your life with your family? And then really you're never going to achieve anything great. It's like a jack of all trades, a master of none. Because eventually you're going to make so much dang money, you have all the free time in the world, and everybody's going, when do you work? Well, whenever I want. Well, why don't you ever work? Well, because I don't want to right now, but I don't have to either. But at one point I was working my face off, and, I did that, so I paid a price, right? And I wrote down here too, is like sacrifice versus opportunity. A lot of people look at these things and they'll hear these conversations and go, oh man, that's such a sacrifice, and they'll call it a sacrifice. And like in my gut, it just irks me. Because I'm like, sacrifice is trading something that you want for something that's hard or uncomfortable or unnecessary. But opportunity is saying, hey, I want to go chase this opportunity to achieve something better, and we can come together. And so I hate when people use the word sacrifice, because I don't really think chasing success and being financially successful and having a great family and living your dream life, I don't think you have to necessarily sacrifice anything, but you have to go for an opportunity.
Yeah.
Because there is a way to do it all.
It's just perspective.
It is your perspective. And just like the way that you think about sacrifice is the way that I thought about balance.
Yeah.
And there's these little concepts that hang me up, and I put a lot of energy into it for no freaking reason.
Yeah.
But it's just like this thought of being mediocre or average, and I don't handle it very well. Like, don't tell me to be mediocre.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be average.
Yeah.
And that concept that you're trying to convince me is something that's important to me is telling me that I need to be average, and I'm not going to go for
Yeah,
it.
no way. Yeah.
But when you talk about the importance of your business and the time and the energy and everything that you're going to have to pour in it to be successful, you also have to do the same things with your family.
Yes.
And with your fitness.
Yes.
And with your diet.
Yes.
And, developing as a leader. And you can do all of these things, and you can do all of them well.
Yep.
Yeah.
You
And it's
can.
just your priorities. Because when I first got married, I was doing a bunch of other shit too that didn't fit into any of these categories. And over time, I got just all of those things out of my freaking way, because they were distracting me from being the best at all of these things.
Yeah, so show me how you do anything. I'll show you how you do everything.
Yep.
And I think another concept is, if you make a ton of money, like let's say you go for it and you make millions of dollars and you lose your family and health in the process, you didn't become successful.
Right.
That is not success. But you can have it all, and you should have it all. So you should chase all of these things, but it doesn't mean you have to let an area of your life go.
Right.
You don't have to become overweight en route to financial success. You don't have to lose your family. You can do it all. And I think it's important for somebody to have the desire and not listen to these bullshit stories that people tell. That's like, oh, it's just part of the journey, And then people are hearing that from a dude who's been divorced 4 times, but yet he's made millions of dollars. And like, oh, I should listen to what he says. Well, yeah, if you want to live that life, then you probably should. But if you want to have a great marriage and you want to be a great husband, father, and you want to have good relationships in your life, plus you want to make a ton of money, you should probably listen to somebody who learned to do it all. You know what I mean? And you can.
You can. You absolutely can.
Yeah.
It takes time. It takes energy.
And you got to implement it all eventually.
Yeah. And it takes time. Like I didn't start out having all these
Right.
priorities and going on date nights and doing daddy-daughter dates and being that intentional about all these other areas of my life, because in the first 2 years of JKR Windows, I let a lot of shit go.
Yeah.
And I focused a ton of my attention there, and it took its toll on our relationship, on the relationship with my kids, and on my health. And little by little, I realized that, working with coaches and mentors and hearing these different perspectives through podcasts and books, it's like, I can have it all if I focus on it and if I make a priority. Because look at all the stuff that I'm doing that's taking my time that isn't helping me reach these things. And what if I got rid of this one extra thing, make time for this thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was easy to implement once we wrote it all out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to get it in front of you. What are the goals of our family, individually, together?
Another great example of why partnerships are so important.
Yes.
Because you said earlier, the Tasmanian devil, it's like we've just got energy in different ways than the women do.
It's so funny. You guys are just this ball of energy, and I feel like I'm at home. I always try and be the calm presence. Don't you feel?
Does that work well often?
Because if he's go 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 at work and stressed out, it's not gonna do us any good if I'm at home stressed out and
Yeah.
a ball of energy too. If he gets home and I'm about all the things that are going on, that's not gonna do any good. I feel like we had someone tell us that one time, the husband was I'm so stressed out. Blah, blah, blah. He's like, why aren't you stressed out? And she's like, well, do you want me to come over there and be stressed out with you? Or should I be over here and be calm and supportive for you to be stressed out over there?
It's such a cool concept. But also how we complement each other in our processes.
Yeah.
like I'm a visionary and I like just stirring shit up and being creative and throwing stuff on the whiteboard and let's fucking do this.
Yeah.
And having people around me within the company that can help me implement those things, and at home, being structured and organized and a calm presence to be like, well, let's think through this for a second. Like, how are we going to do that?
Yeah.
It's like, I don't give a shit. Let's just fucking do it.
Yeah. I don't know. How do you think that works with our dynamic?
I don't know.
They
Now
talk
I'm-
about that, and I don't feel like we're as structured, but I feel like it's this unsaid.
Yeah, it's the unspoken. We just do
I
it.
feel like we also have 20 years of experience.
Yeah.
So after 20 years of
I kind of know what he needs
Yeah.
at the time, So, and same, because sometimes he's like the calm to my storm. 'Cause
Yeah,
I'll
I
be
can see that.
absolutely, and it hasn't always been that way. But I don't know, he just has wisdom, and I'll be like, okay, like I'll call him freaking out, and this and he's like, hey, calm down, and this is what you should do, and I'm like, yes. And so he does that for me a lot. I'm not as calm as Chandel. So,
Well, I have learned too, because I'm glad you brought that up, because there was a long period of our lives where I was just emotionally external. So my emotions, I would wear them on my sleeve. But I never understood how it actually impacted this pattern that I would live my life in.
Yeah.
So here I was actively, outwardly, go, fired up, inspired, right? And I would externally, because I thought I had to do that for other people to feel that way around me, expecting that my external emotions would actually wear off on other people and hopefully they would act that way too.
Yeah.
And then I realized that's not going to happen, because I'm not going to influence somebody's behavior based on how I feel. I'm just going to change their emotions, but it's not going to change their behavior, because it has to be a choice of theirs to want to change your behavior, right?
Yeah.
So over the years, I've learned that hey, I can still be that person, but not have to externally be that way, and focus on what can I do right now to make my life better. We were talking about this before the podcast, right? And over the years, I've become this very level, emotionally. I'm very emotionally predictable.
yeah,
I think even my kids know how I'm going to respond probably to everything,
yeah.
right? And so it's taken me a lot of years to do that, and still I don't respond perfectly, because there's still times where my emotions go external. But I've always tried to keep them internal, because not that I don't express my love for my family, my friends. I try to do a great job of those things. I just don't try to let my emotions take over my actions. And I think it's helped me a lot in my life, my relationship, my friends, because sometimes there's shit I want to say that I shouldn't say it. But I want to, because I'm a truth teller. Like, I should tell you the truth, The truth is good, and it is good, and I believe that. But sometimes it shouldn't be broadcast with emotion,
Yeah.
because I shouldn't. Your emotion will cloud your judgment.
I feel like I've helped you with that. I'm
A
like,
ton.
you don't have to say everything that's on your mind right at that second.
Yeah.
People do have feelings, and sometimes you might not agree with them, but you don't have to. I mean, if you want to teach them something, but you don't have to just sit there and tell them why they're wrong.
There is a way to do it that's
exactly.
tactful. And you can take all that stuff that you're processing, and instead of just saying the first thing that comes to your mind, which sometimes we do, you process it. And what does this person really need to hear? How can I inspire them? How can I put things into perspective for them? And I think the more that you get to know your spouse,
Yeah.
the more that you can do that for each other.
Yeah.
Because I know that I've strongly encouraged Chandel to do that for me, because sometimes she just tells me how it is, and it just makes things worse.
Makes you angry?
It just makes me angry. It's like, okay, honey, I understand what you're trying to do. There's a way to do this. Like, my personality well enough now.
If I
There's a
try
way
and
to
tell
do
you to
it
do something, you're gonna do
that it's
opposite.
more practical for me.
Yeah.
And that I can put things into perspective, because immediately my emotions go to here when you do it that way.
Yeah.
And then everything that you were just trying to do is completely pointless anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've gotten better.
You definitely have. You definitely have. And I very intentionally tried to get better too, because what good does it do to just get each other fired up and ruffle a bunch of feathers and rub it in your face?
I think we're good at reading where each other's at too at the moment.
How do you think that's happened over the years? Like, what do you think changed? Because I think that a lot of people do. A lot of people watching this are like, oh yeah, we do that same thing, but then they never change it. So what do you think has changed?
So the one thing that I think comes naturally for me is, first of all, I've always been good at apologizing. I want to fix this. I'm intentional. And before I ever even had experience, it was just like the way that I felt about it and the energy that happened because of what I just did. Man, I got to get this fixed.
Taking ownership of it. Yeah.
Yeah, you are
But
good.
then also, it's one of the things that come naturally to me that maybe don't come as naturally to other people is I pay attention to how I make people feel, whether it's my wife or my kids or anybody. When I say shit, I'm kind of brazen sometimes, and it makes people feel. Sometimes it's what they needed to hear, and they take it well, and sometimes it did the exact opposite of what I was trying to do.
Yeah.
And now I got to go back and patch things up. But along the way, it's been a long time. Ever since I was the oldest of 4 boys, and I had a lot of practice on my little brothers.
Yeah.
And I'd make them feel like shit and say a bunch of stuff that I really didn't mean,
Yeah.
and then it didn't feel good.
Yeah.
And so over a lifetime, if you're intentional and you're paying attention,
You're paying attention, yeah. And it's like, do I want to keep repeating this pattern? Like, what can I do different?
it takes being intentional. 'Cause
You've gotta
you
wanna get
definitely
better.
have, and a lot
Yeah.
of communication, like
Yeah.
a lot of communication.
Well, that's what I was trying to get, and I hope people understand is that you've got to want to get better.
Yeah.
Like, you can't just accept things the way they are. You've got to want them to improve.
Right.
with everything.
Yes, it doesn't matter if it's in sales, if you want to lose weight, if you want to have a better relationship, if you want to be a better spouse you've got to want to improve.
What's the
And I think it's okay to like tell your partner what you need, like both ways.
Yeah.
Like, this is what I need from you as a support. This is what I need from you as the person that's going out and working your ass off all day.
yeah. No, for
Like,
sure.
both ways, they both need support.
Yeah, I was going to use the D word, but the percentage of people that have their relationships fail has got to be at an all-time high.
Oh, yeah. Well,
Failed?
the
Failed
percentage of
relationship.
people that split up or whatever. Yeah, because, well, and let's face it, the majority of marriages end.
Yeah. Well, more than 50%.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
But people quit everything.
Yeah.
They quit. I've always said it. They quit everything they do. They quit the gym. They quit their marriages. They quit everything. They quit. And it becomes a habit. And what happens is like they're this square peg and they stick it in a round hole and it rubs the edges off. And then eventually you do that enough times and they become round. They become a quitter because they did it enough times. They built it into who they are. And you ever meet those people? It's like, this is who I am, right? It's like, you're proud of being a loser. Like, how about you change?
Yeah.
Like, how about that's not who you are? I think you actually mentioned some of this in your book, like of people saying, oh, an addict, like maybe you're not.
Yeah.
Maybe you just got in a habit of drinking too damn much and you need to stop. Like maybe that's really what it was. Maybe that if you don't identify as that, you can actually make a change.
Yeah.
That's why I brought that up, because
Yeah.
we're just talking about seeking something different
Yeah.
Yeah.
and actively looking for the next level for you.
Yeah.
And how do I improve?
How do you
And
grow?
I don't want to have that continue to happen in my life.
Yeah.
So what behaviors do I need to change for it to not happen anymore?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's lacking. Like 95% of people just don't process things that way. And they just keep repeating the same patterns and just identify as that now.
It's because I can't stand when people label themselves like that's just the way I am. I'm this person. I sleep
is
in.
complete bullshit.
Yeah, it is exactly.
And I'm
I-
okay with people labeling themselves as long as it's, I'm a winner. I'm a
Well,
stud.
yeah.
I'm
And-
incredible, Like,
Because it works the same way.
It
Positive
does.
affirmation.
So that's one thing we are constantly telling, and Aspen takes it to heart. She always says that your words come true. And I always tell her that. I say, if you say you're not good at something, like if she says, oh, I just can't do that, or I'm not good at this, at gymnastics, I'll say, what happens when you tell yourself something? And she says, it becomes reality. And I said, yeah, so if you tell yourself you're not good at it, you won't be good at it. And I'm constantly, so now all she said, I told myself I was good at it, and then I just did it. I'm like, exactly, because words matter. Like they become reality, and they really
Incredible.
do.
Incredible.
But to train that into your
Kids are freaking watching you.
And she's
Seven.
Seven.
7, and she's an animal.
Yeah. She
Like
is
but it's because her self-talk is so,
powerful.
yeah, and it's always positive.
Yeah.
And
So-
maybe a little bit of that is genetic and passed down through the ages, but most of
Me.
it, she watches you guys.
Yeah.
And all 3 of your kids are incredible because they have incredible parents. And people get so frustrated with their kids that they're not doing incredible things, and they don't have good grades, and they don't have good habits.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
like,
what
you gotta look
example
at
are
yourself in
you?
the mirror.
Well, I think
All of their
that
habits
too.
came from you.
Yeah.
One of the things that we've tried to consistently do is not only do we try to look at like the best in each other, like what works in business relationships. It doesn't matter what it is, but like what are the great things about you? Because it's not like nobody's perfect.
Right.
Our kids aren't perfect. We're not perfect. We like to think we are, right? It's like people always say, be a tough coach. Like, just tell me the truth. They do not want the truth, first of all. If you're in leadership and someone says, tell me the truth, do not tell them the freaking truth, right? What you do is you find the things that are great about them and you continuously pour into that. And so with our kids, we're always trying to find, like, what are the attributes that are amazing about our children? And let's pour the fuel on that and find out what's great about it. Yeah. And they're all going to have different talents or different skills or different things,
Different
like,
personalities.
Yeah. Like, I do think there's some people that don't have this bubbly, positive personality like Aspen does or like Kelsey does. I don't. I naturally have this chip on my shoulder. But it's also the thing that drives me. Yeah. Like, oh, yeah, I'll show you. And it might not be the most positive perspective, but it does make me committed. It does make me disciplined. And it's like, I refuse to give up on something. I refuse. That's not who I am. I'm not built that way. I refuse, right? And so there goes back to that identity, that self-talk, commitment that we talked about earlier on. Like, I'm going to make this work. And then I'm going to be disciplined to the process. Like, it doesn't matter how tough it gets. One of the things I've always said is if I would have known that this was the reward and how good it is, it could have been 1,000 times tougher and I still would have done it.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah, knowing where we were and where we've come, I would say the same thing. And it was tough, and it was long hours, and it was stressful. And I beat myself up about a lot of things. It just was never happening fast enough. But I would have gone through 10 times as much to know, to get to experience now this relationship with my wife, with my kids, and my development as a leader. How far we've come with the company.
Yeah.
It's incredible. Do you have any final messages for us, honey?
I was just gonna say, is there like some key takeaways you would give your teams?
Oh, that's what I was asking you for.
Oh, for me?
You're the ones that have the secrets.
So when it comes to
I think
partnerships,
you got to get on the same page.
And how do you do that?
One. You gotta communicate.
Communication.
I think
She told me for the first couple of years of our marriage, she would write it on papers and give it to me, and it would say communication, like written 75 times.
No, it did not.
Well,
you would ask me something, right?
Well, I think, I was asking you, what do you need and how can I be better? And it was very simple for her. It was just like she would write it out and just say the one thing that she needed, she would write, it wasn't 75, but it was like 10 times she'd write it on a page. It's like, this is what I need.
Tell me what's in your mind.
Yeah.
Because I can see there's all this stuff going on in your head, but how do I get it out of you?
Yeah.
So communicate. You've got to be on the same page, and the only way that you're going to be able to do that is to be able to communicate. You got to sit down. You got to make time for each other.
Have a clear
vision. You
vision.
got to plan stuff out. Talk about your future. Talk about what's going to, each of your expectations and what it's going to take for you to reach those new levels in your relationship and your business, your income earning potential.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen by osmosis. And you can't just put your head down and go after it and say, I'm just a guy that goes and does. And I worry about the rest later. That's not how it works. You're going to end up having accomplished something, but losing a bunch of other shit in the process.
Right.
Like Jim Rohn, he says, you got to do, but you also have to say, right? So it can't just be one or the other. You've got to do both. How about you, baby? You were going to say something.
Well, I think he covered most of it, but I think a good starting point is just write down what you guys want for your life. I mean, which is goals, right? But why are you doing what you're doing? Because there is going to be a price. There's a price for anything. There's a price to be broke. The price is you don't do anything, right? But then you end up broke. There's going to be a price to be successful, and that's going to take a lot of work and a lot of effort on both of your guys' ends. So I think, what are you willing to do and what are you willing not to do? Because that kind of puts in perspective, okay, like, I am okay with supporting you 100%, showing up to whatever you need, taking care of the home front, doing all I need to do so you can go and work your tail off and travel and knock doors.
So now give us an example of something that you would not be willing to do.
What's something I wouldn't be willing to do?
There's certain things that I know that we've written down.
Yeah.
Like there's the non-negotiables, right?
Right.
Yeah. I'm not going to compromise on my morals and ethics
Yeah,
to make
absolutely.
money.
No, yeah.
Never in my life will my kids or my wife or anybody around me see a compromise on
Yep.
my morals and ethics to make money. So that's one example.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's great. Yeah.
And then also, like, say, as a mother, you need to have this relationship and this bond and time with your children. And there may be a non-negotiable. I'm not saying it is for us. I don't think we've ever really talked about it because it's just been like a given.
Yeah.
But I am not going to sacrifice time with my kids and the relationship with my kids to go make money.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a non-negotiable for me.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this real quick, because when we were in the thick of building our business, we didn't have kids. So we were grinding. There wasn't like, oh, I need to spend time with my kids, or they have sports, or they have this. Now they're in sports or in activities, and we don't miss anything. But I look back and I say, as long as one of us was there, one of us was present, that's sufficient enough if dad is working his tail off for us. And I don't know how it would play out.
I think it's important in that process because if you're on the same page, then it's the perspective of sacrifice versus opportunity. If mom is saying, dad's working hard to provide for our family, what a stud, he's amazing, we're so grateful for him, we're going to serve him when he gets home, we're going to make sure he has food to eat and a clean home to come home to and a great environment so he can come home and be happy. And then dad walks in and he turns off his phone and he's playing with the kids and he's present and he's being a great dad. And all of that is a process of making a decision that the price that dad is paying, mom is also paying, and so are the kids.
Yeah.
But it's all your perspective about that that opportunity of working all day, every day, because there is going to be a time that you have to do that. Like you talking about the 2 years, it's just what you got to do. I was saying it about Hayden before this, right? We were just talking about it. Like, if you're going to do something great in life, you've got to be willing to pay a price for 5 years if you don't want to pay the price for 40.
Yeah.
Because you're either going to go bust your ass for 5 years and build a business and become an entrepreneur and get great at something, or you're going to work for 40 years of your life to maybe save a couple $100 a month and maybe you make it.
Yeah.
Either way's a price you're going to have to pay. You decide that.
Yeah.
But I think when it comes to that of being present with your children, a lot of it just has to do with how we talk about that price. Like, is it something we're grateful for? You know what I mean?
And I think, we dealt with that when you very first started the business. You were like, when you're leaving town and the kid's like, I don't want you to leave. You told me, like, I need you to also, like, communicate to them what we're doing this for.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, there's nothing better than coming home to your kids excited to see you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And running through the door and even hearing my truck come down the road and they run out to see me.
Yep.
Yeah.
Greatest
But
feeling in the world.
That would not be possible without her support and her backing me up and being a complete advocate for everything that I'm doing, because I'll leave for a couple of days, and whether it's something she agrees with or not, she's still supportive. And that's that gets me fired up.
Yeah.
That gives me energy. And I remember having to have those talk with my kids too. That they didn't understand why I got to leave again.
Yeah.
And that my daughter still asks me. She's 9 years old, and she says,
She's 10.
10. But barely. So.
Close enough.
Dad, I don't have school tomorrow. Do you have to work tomorrow?
Yeah.
I said, I do got to work tomorrow, sweetheart, but I'll be home later in the afternoon. I'll spend some time with you.
Yeah.
And they just don't get it.
Yeah.
And I got to have these little conversations with them, just like I had to have with my wife about the things that I got to do and my responsibilities and in the business and becoming a leader and having to my commitments. And I'm trying to not only say it, but then be an example of it.
Yeah.
And then when I'm home,
You're very intentional when you're home.
I turn the phone off and I'm spending time with them and we're reading stories and we're talking about their day. And then the words are aligning with the actions.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's important. Anybody listening to this, just remember that if you're paying a price and you're working hard, so is your family. And the reward for that price you're paying needs to be intentional. And it needs to be communicated. So we have to say these things like, here's the goal. We have to set goals reward ourselves at different, maybe it's a trip to Disneyland for the kids or whatever. I hate Disneyland, so maybe whatever it is, right? Maybe it's a trip to the beach or whatever it may be. And there needs to be this, we're going to pay a price, set a goal, reward ourselves. Set a goal, pay a price, reward ourselves. And as the kids see that, what do they do as they get older? Same thing.
Same thing.
They learn how to set a goal, they go pay a price, they get a reward. Not everybody gets a trophy.
That's great.
I ain't trying to raise kids that think, just everybody gets a trophy because we participated.
Yeah.
Want a
And
trophy?
keep
Go
going
ahead.
and keep going over it too. Like, don't just say it one time.
Yeah,
It's
no.
like
Oh no.
You got to keep it
you
at the
gotta
front of your
keep
mind.
revisiting the goals
Daily.
daily.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It has to be part of your daily habits.
Awesome.
Another great episode of the books. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Hopefully you made it through this whole thing. A ton of value there. If you're in a partnership right now and you're looking for the answer of how do you take it to the next level? We talked about a lot of those things, and really it's not as hard as you want to make it out to be. No. It's just having great examples in your life and following the basics and doing the hard things, having the hard conversations. It wasn't always easy for us. We're an example now of what a great relationship can be, even though we still have our struggles. It didn't start out this way.
Yeah.
But relationships are so important. And in 2024, relationships like this are so rare. But we want to continue to show up and be those examples of what a great relationship can be and how powerful it is. And the incredible things that I've accomplished would not be possible without this dynamic and this dynamic duo that we've created. So if you haven't already, like and subscribe to the podcast. Share this. I know this is a message that you know somebody.
Could benefit from.
Thank you. She even finishes my sentences. She knew what I was trying to say. Somebody you know can benefit from this message. Share it with them. Keep coming back every week for more Just Real Quick. We'll catch you guys next time.
So long.
Awesome.
Awesome. Awesome.